Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. From the very beginning, I will say this. I do not subscribe with or to the narrative provided to us by these idiots, stating that Russia attacked Ukraine unprovoked. I would not subscribe that because the evidence could be brought to support a different alternative, a different scenario, which is actually the Russians told NATO, hey, you are too close, our national security is threatened. Can we talk about it? Can you give us some guarantees? Otherwise, we have to intervene over there because you guys are too close in Ukraine. So you provoke us in reacting because you're going to bring your guns in Ukraine closer to our border, which is you shorten the time between when you launch a rocket until it hits our targets. So instead of being 3 minutes, it's going to be a minute and a half. Now that's very important as a reaction, in war. And these guys said no. Well, I think that is a justification, as bad as it is. Another one could be NATO expansion again towards Russia, and so on. I mean, so I do not subscribe to that idiotic narrative. On the other hand, I don't subscribe to the narrative that is good, all good, and all evil. I don't, it's in between. It's proportion. More good or more bad on this issue. On another issue, could be the other way around. So when the Americans, unfortunately, the government and their weasels and the handlers of the government tell us that the narrative is this, and this is the only script and interpretation of the facts that they pick and choose, they expect everybody else to agree with that. Obviously, if you're a small country if you can be smacked around, you will shut up and you go with the script, you go with the flow, But if you're a country that you're like China, you don't need to do that. Or like India, like Russia, obviously, like Brazil, like Israel. You don't have to agree with this scenario, with this narrative that is incomplete. That's the word, incomplete. But if you complete it, it changes the whole conclusion. So what happened? The United States wants everybody to sing the same tune. And there's some countries that said no. And I have here the United States of America, the government urges China to do something according to the narrative the Americans are putting forward, thinking that the Chinese subscribe to that narrative, but the Chinese don't. Because the Chinese, they have the same right to turn the tables against the Americans and say, wait a minute, why don't you do that? Because I think you are wrong and we are right. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Ukrainska Pravda. United States, urges China to crack down on companies helping Russia evade sanctions. Remember, those sanctions are not imposed by China, are imposed by the United States. So China doesn't have to comply with any sanctions the United States of America place on another country. That's not their business. First. Second, maybe China should say, no, actually, United States, I urge you to crack down on your companies helping Ukraine militarily, financially, and so on. Why not? Because I don't subscribe with your narrative. But China doesn't do that yet. But by their action, they don't have to say it, because by their action, they tell the United States, you know what, move on. So this is Friday, November 10th, 2023. During a meeting with Chinese Deputy Prime Minister He Lifeng, U.S. Treasury Secretary Zelensky Stein Janet Yellen called on Beijing not to help Russia evade sanctions, American sanctions, not Chinese sanctions, and to prevent this from being done through Chinese companies. Yellen said this at a press conference following the meeting, reports European Pravda. The U.S. official expressed concern that despite the efforts of the United States, critical equipment is evading sanctions and being delivered to Russia. So, despite the efforts of the United States, well, it's your thing. But we tell you what to do, China. Got that? I don't think so. You see, these guys conflate our laws and our decisions like they're international law. So if they place sanctions and embargo on Cuba, everybody else has to. Otherwise, Al Capone will punch everybody in the face. The same thing with Venezuela. Why? It's a rule-based world order. I thought that United Nations is the only body, or maybe country to country. But you can't have a problem with your neighbor and you not ask. You tell everybody around not to talk with a neighbor, even though they're friends. Why? Because you're gonna smack them. Now that's how this Al Capone acts. Now you might like it because you are at the giving end. But imagine that you are at the receiving end if you would like it. And you're a Christian, right? Don't do unto others what blah blah blah, all right? So if you're a Christian, then you have to agree with me. If you're not a Christian, I think you're at least moral. And morality doesn't come from God's. Let's cut that crap. All right. I know that's how they say, but we can look where morality came from, and you don't find the Judeo-Christian necessary, because some people were not even familiar with Judeo-Christian blah blah blah. Let's put it this way, even though they say Judeo-Christian, but there's two opposite things. One is turn the other cheek, forgive your enemy and so on, and the other one is, and love your blah blah blah, and the other one is what? An eye for an eye? It's two opposite things. That's why our Savior Jesus Christ came and he changed the law. He challenged it. That's why the Romans nailed him to the cross, because he hurt the Romans. Another big Goebbels. All right. Not Goebbels, but anyway. We have taken sanctions already against a number of firms and countries, including China. All right. So we are determined to do everything we can, bomb them, to stem the flow of material that aids Russia in conducting this brutal and illegal war. You talk about illegal war? Should I mention 1999 bombardment of Yugoslavia? That was illegal. You didn't receive the vote from the United Nations Security Council. You did not. That was an illegal war. Every crime, every person that died over there, who died, was killed over there, it's a war crime. Each and every. Anyway, you don't believe me? Maybe you don't like that, but you have to look at the truth. Everything I said is true. You don't like what I said? Well, you don't like the truth then. Bye-bye. So, let's see what these guys are saying. So, illegal war. Well, it is illegal. It's between one country and another country. But if that's illegal, how about yours? Or we don't talk about that one? It doesn't mean that if these guys are doing it, we should ignore it because we did it as well. But at least a little bit more, humbleness. We have taken sanctions already against a number of firms and countries, including China. So they sanctioned China, the Americans, because of what? And we do see evidence that there are some firms, and I'm certainly not saying with the knowledge of the Chinese government, but some Chinese private firms that may be aiding in this equipment and material to Russia, and some financial institutions could be involved in facilitating that flow. Well, Russia can claim self-defense, can they? Our national security was threatened. Remember how many times the United States of America claimed national security threat? I can give you one example. Iraq. Did Iraq attack the United States of America? But they said national security concern, it's an imminent threat. Imminent, present danger. That's right. Imminent and present danger. We have to go and bring democracy and freedom. That's what they said after they couldn't find what they said they will find. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So the U.S. Treasury Secretary said that in her conversations with her Chinese counterpart, she had emphasized that Beijing must not, like a teacher scolds a student, must not facilitate the evasion of sanctions by Russia. And I'm quoting, we would like to see China crack down on companies that violate sanctions. Sanctions. Whose sanctions? United Nations sanctions or your sanctions? You have no jurisdiction over me. Do you? Well, I'm going to punch you in the face. I dare you. Especially if we are able to provide information about their violations. You provide evidence of the violation of something that we don't recognize as legitimate. What are you talking about? She added, There have been reports in the media that despite, again, they keep going with this imbecility, again, U.S. intelligence has come to the same conclusion, reporting in July that China is supplying Russia with military and dual-use technology that Russia is using in the war against Ukraine. Okay? Good for you. Good for you. I think you bomb illegally people in Syria. You have illegal deployment of troops in Syria. Are you going to do something about it? We're going to sanction you, and we have evidence, and you tell us, you brag about it. In self-defense, you have troops in a country, sovereign country, independent, illegally placed over there for some years already, and you are attacked by some, and then you say, I'm going to react in self-defense. What are you doing there? You're illegitimate location. You're deployed over there illegally. You're occupying force. What do you expect? And then when you are shot at or attacked with drones, in self-defense, we're going to destroy everybody. So you see, when they do these kind of things, and then they come and they scold China like it's a little third grader, I mean, it makes you vomit. What, am I supposed to ignore it? If I'm a good, obedient citizen, I will do that definitely. And I will find a lot of justifications based on, I am good, you are bad, because I say so. And that's it. Or I identify as good, and I identify you as bad. You can't identify yourself as good. No. I have the imperium. I am the only one in charge who can identify whomever the way I want. The way I can identify you today as bad, and tomorrow, if you're doing what I tell you to do, you're gonna be the bad guy, the good guy. I can change just like this, and you're the same guy. I'm gonna forget about the crime you committed if you do what I tell you now. This is how these guys roll, and they expect us to support them? No. As an obedient citizen, yes, I support it. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.